the reason self-care feels so wrong is because you were never shown that you mattered. Welcome to healing card number 14, self-care. I'm Judy Bommarito, and in the mother phase of our healing journey, we're confronting why treating ourselves with love feels like the most selfish thing we could do. Today we're exploring how to reparent yourself when you were raised by someone who couldn't parent themselves. If you've been following our healing card series, you know we're in the mother phase now. Cards 11 through 20, where we stop just surviving our childhood patterns and start actively mothering ourselves. We've released shame, sat with discomfort, and learned boundaries. Now we're tackling something that feels impossible when you grew up emotionally neglected: believing you deserve care. This isn't about spa days and bubble baths. This is about learning to treat yourself like someone worth loving when no one ever showed you how. When you grow up with an emotionally unavailable parent, you learn that your needs are inconvenient at best, dangerous at worst. You learn to read the room, manage everyone else's emotions, and make yourself small so you don't add to the chaos. You become an expert at surviving on scraps of attention and convincing yourself you don't need more. This programming runs so deep that decades later, taking a nap feels selfish. Saying you're tired feels dramatic. Asking for help feels like too much. You've internalized the message that other people's discomfort matters more than your basic human needs. The voice in your head that says you don't deserve rest, that's not your voice. That's the voice of someone who was never taught that care is a birthright, not something you earn through endless giving. That's the voice of someone whose own needs were so neglected they couldn't see yours. But here's what I've learned. You cannot heal from neglect with more neglect. You cannot recover from emotional starvation by continuing to starve yourself. At some point, you have to become the parent you never had to yourself. When self-care feels wrong, it's usually because you're breaking a rule you didn't know you'd internalized. My needs don't matter as much as everyone else's. This rule was written by someone who couldn't meet your childhood needs, but you've been following it your whole life. The resistance to self-care isn't really about being too busy or not having time. It's about a deep, unconscious belief that you're not worth the investment, that rest is something other people deserve, but not you. This full moon energy asks, what do I need to release to make space for loving myself? Often what we need to release is the guilt. The guilt that says wanting comfort means you're weak. The guilt that says needing rest means you're lazy. The guilt that says caring for yourself takes away from caring for others. But love isn't a finite resource. When you learn to love yourself, you don't have less love to give others. You have more authentic love to offer because it's coming from fullness instead of depletion. Self-care for people like us isn't just about meeting our current needs. It's about going back and giving ourselves what we never received. It's about learning to speak to ourselves with kindness when the only voice we heard was criticism. It's about learning to comfort ourselves when we were left to regulate our own emotions as children. This is reparenting work. You're literally learning to be a loving parent to the parts of yourself that were neglected, dismissed, or told they were too much. In families where emotional unavailability is the norm, self-care becomes a radical act of rebellion. It's refusing to perpetuate the cycle of neglect. It's saying, the pattern of not mattering stops with me. It's choosing to model a different way of being human for yourself and anyone watching your life. Every time you rest without guilt, you're healing not just yourself, but the generations that came before and after you. I would love to share with you a practice that rewrote my relationship with self-care. I call it the permission practice. Because sometimes we need to explicitly give ourselves permission for things that should be automatic. Step 1, notice the resistance. When you think about resting or caring for yourself, what comes up? Guilt? Shame? The voice that says you don't have time? Notice this resistance without trying to change it. Step 2, identify the source. Ask yourself, whose voice is this? Usually the voice telling you not to rest isn't yours. It's someone from your past who couldn't rest themselves. Name where this voice came from. Step 3, give yourself permission. Speak directly to yourself like a loving parent. You are allowed to be tired. You deserve comfort. Your needs matter. Rest is not selfish. Say it out loud until you can hear it. Step 4, start small. Choose one tiny act of self-care. Making yourself a cup of tea, taking 5 deep breaths, sitting in the sun for 3 minutes. Practice receiving your own kindness in small doses. This isn't about grand gestures. It's about rewiring decades of programming that told you you didn't matter. Every time you choose to care for yourself, you're breaking a generational pattern. You're refusing to pass down the legacy of emotional neglect that was handed to you. You're proving that it's possible to matter, to deserve care, to be human in ways your parent never learned. This work isn't just healing you, it's healing the family line. It's stopping the transmission of belief that love is scarce and you're not worthy of receiving it. When you've spent your life focused on everyone else's needs, you might not even know what yours are. Self-care becomes a journey of discovery. What actually soothes me? What gives me energy? What makes me feel safe and loved? This is like learning a new language, the language of your own inner world. Be patient with yourself as you figure out what self-love actually looks like for you. The beautiful thing about learning to care for yourself is that it reveals who you actually are beneath the adaptation of people-pleasing. When you give yourself permission to rest, you discover what you're like when you're not exhausted. When you give yourself permission to have preferences, you discover what you actually enjoy. Self-care becomes a path back to your authentic self, the person you were before you learned that your needs didn't matter. Because learning to love yourself is the most important relationship work you'll ever do. Learning to care for myself wasn't just about bubble baths and face masks, though those things can be part of it. It was about fundamentally changing the relationship I had with my own worth. It was about deciding that the child who was overlooked deserves to be seen. The needs that were dismissed deserve to be met. The heart that was neglected deserves to be loved. Self-care in the mother phase isn't selfish. It's how you mother yourself back to wholeness. It's how you give yourself what was missing so you can show up authentically for everything that matters to you. Next week, we're exploring healing card number 15, reclaiming your voice. Because once you've learned that you matter enough to care for, you need to learn that you matter enough to be heard. After years of keeping quiet to keep the peace, how do you find and trust your own voice? If this resonated with you, share in the comments. What's one way you can practice self-care this week that feels scary but necessary? Your permission to matter gives others permission to matter too. Remember, in the mother phase, learning to care for yourself isn't selfish. It's how you break cycles and create the love you wish had always existed. Until next time, practice loving yourself like the precious person you've always been. Take good care.